everybody, this is Raul for Bass Musician Magazine, and today we have the great honor and pleasure of chatting with bassist for Fireball Ministry, Scott Reeder.
Hello there.
Hey, Scott. Starting from the beginning, I know a lot of people like to get to know the people we're talking to. Tell us a little bit about your bass journey. How did you get started in bass?
I actually started out as a drummer when I was 5, and I played in punk bands in high school. Our bass player actually quit in the middle of everything when we first started getting gigs, and we couldn't find another bass player that was into punk rock. So I think I bought his bass for $100, and we got Alfredo Hernandez to play drums, who was later in Caius and Queens of the Stone Age. And Mario Lawley was the guitar player who I played with in Across the River that Caius covered one of our songs. There's just this long history with these guys. That was pretty much the beginning. One of the first influences was Black Flag, Chuck Dukowski. My first concerts were Cheap Trick and then Rush during the Moving Pictures tour. Third concert was Black Flag, and Chuck Dukowski, the energy in his bass playing and that rhythm section was so tight. There was just like this cathartic energy, like he was exorcising any demons that were in him. And I met him afterwards, and he was the coolest guy, happy camper. And that's something that I've always held on to, that I try to, I try to get rid of all my demons when I play live. And I've always held on to that he was probably my biggest influence ever on bass. Of course, Mike Watt, saw him play a bunch back in those days. I came out of the punk rock scene. And then when I was playing with Alfredo Hernandez and Mario Lawley, we had this group called Across the River, and we kind of took that punk rock thing, and we were listening to a lot of hard rock, and we not consciously, but we were kind of melding those together. And as we were getting a little better on our instruments, we tried to have sections of improvisation. So it was kind of a weird mesh of punk rock and hard rock and jammy stuff combined, and that was really when we got serious about playing, and then after that I played in the Obsessed for a little bit, got my feet wet with touring and going overseas, and then I quit that band and joined Caius, and that was a big life changer.
Gotcha. And so basically, from what I'm understanding, it's been kind of a hands-on, learn-as-you-go kind of process. And
it's been an accident, pretty much.
And this is
a plan. Okay, I'm going to go to college and study and get my, it's just going wherever the wind carries me. And
nice.
So far, working out okay.
Well, and it's not unusual. You're not the first person that started on drums that plays bass that I've talked to, and it seems to be a very natural progression, and if nothing else, it also kind of helps you.
Yeah, those two roles.
Exactly. And since the bass is both melodic and percussive, it explains a lot when you listen to somebody who has that percussive, laying down the groove, how they approach it, and kind of supporting scaffolding percussive role that you find in rock. And I'll mention, I was just listening to a recent video release, The Answer, that you guys have, and I'll make sure I include the link so people can see that. Cool. But listening to your bass work there, I totally get a drummer background on it, because it's heartbeats keeping things going there with it.
Yeah, I still need to hit on something.
Yeah.
My playing is pretty rough on my basses. And I blow up amps all the time. I was talking to Tony from this band King in LA the other night, and I'm trying to figure out why I blow up so many amps. And maybe it's because I'm hitting the strings so hard they're popping on the pickups. And those little spikes are sending, real hard spikes into the amps, because I blow up amps all the time. And it's not like I'm sending the signal through pedals that are cranked up too high or anything like that. So I don't know. I'm starting to get a complex.
Yeah. Well, I may have to. We have to consult with some of our amp guru people as if
Yes.
we can't figure out a solution for you. But moving forward to Fireball Ministry,
Yep.
how did that? When did that start?
It started when I was asked to be in the Sound City movie and play on the soundtrack.
Okay.
You know about that?
No, tell me.
Oh, well, Caius recorded two albums. Two albums with me at Sound City Studios. I did another album there with Unita. So years later, 2013, I think it was, I was asleep and my phone buzzed, getting a text from somebody. It's Dave Grohl. And he said, dude, I bought the console from Sound City. I'm going to make a documentary about Sound City. Do you want to play on the soundtrack? And can I use profanity here?
Please, go ahead.
I texted back, fuck, yes. And the next morning, he'd already sent a demo, and it turns out the track is going to be recorded with Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick, who was my first concert.
Nice.
Corey Taylor from Slipknot, Dave Grohl playing drums, me playing bass.
Mm-hmm.
So within the week, I was in the studio with Butch Vig producing, cameras all over the place. And my bandmate from Fireball Ministry now, Jim Rhoda, was co-producing the film. And we hadn't seen each other for a long time, and we hung out afterwards a little bit. And he asked if I wanted to record a Fireball Ministry song because they didn't have a bass player at the time.
Gotcha.
Well, yeah. So probably within a couple months after that, he called me up, and I went to his house and recorded this song. It came out great. And he said, what do you think about doing some live shows one of these days? I said, I'd love it. And at least a year went by, and he called me and said, hey, Lemmy invited us to play on a motorboat cruise with Motorhead, Testament, a whole bunch of bands, Anthrax. And so that was it. We started rehearsing, and my first show with Fireball Ministry was on a boat with Motorhead.
Yeah, nice.
So that was it. We've been playing some shows now and then. We don't play out too much, but when special stuff like that comes up. But now that this record's out, that's a different story. It came out on October 6th, and the next day we played a big show in California, Cal Jam 17 with Foo Fighters and Queens of the Stone Age, and a lot of people were checking us out that day.
Nice.
And we just
for people that don't know, the name of the record is Remember the Story, right?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yep. So we just got off the road with Red Fang, had a blast with those guys, and we're on a little hiatus right now, but there's some stuff coming up. Hasn't been announced yet, but I think we're going to be doing some East Coast stuff, and there's some European stuff in the works, and so there's stuff on the horizon that's getting closer.
Got you. Now, probably because this is as good a place as any, the best place if people want to know if you're going to be close to them, would it be fireballministry.com?
Yes.
Gotcha.
There's also Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
All
not
the social
hard
media.
to find. Yeah.
Gotcha. Very cool stuff. And kind of coming back to the album, that album was the first one you guys had released, at least the band, from what I understood, like about 7 years. It had been a while.
I think it's 7 years, yeah. Pretty crazy. Nobody moves very fast in this band. Everybody has their careers and stuff. Obviously, Jim is in the film world.
Mm-hmm.
He does a lot of the Foo Fighters stuff. Their last two videos he co-produced. He co-produced the Sound City film, and Sonic Highways, the Foo Fighters series on HBO. I don't know if you saw any of that.
Haven't seen it yet, but I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. It's amazing. Jim was co-producing this thing. They went to a different city for every episode and met with a lot of the local musicians. There's Dolly Parton, and they sat down with President Obama and talked music and about the DC scene, the go-go scene out there. And And then Dave Grohl would take snippets of these conversations and try to bring those into the lyrics. And they would record a new song with the Foo Fighters every week and have a special guest, from each city.
Nice.
And man, I got turned on to some pretty crazy stuff. And I was actually interviewed for it was the LA episode, but halfway through it, they're like, screw this, let's go to the desert. And they recorded at Rancho de la Luna, where Caius recorded back in the day. Mm-hmm. They had Joe Walsh play guitar on that track. I was out there when he was recording. And it was pretty exciting to be a part of that. So yeah, Jim's part of that. This is kind of a long-winded, I'm just trying to explain how busy our bandmates are.
Yeah. Oh no, that puts things in perspective, because a lot of times we'll talk to people that are juggling bands, and that is a reality. A lot of times they will turn their efforts towards the one that needs the most attention at the time. It's kind of like cooking, when you got multiple pots on different burners and you go, okay, I got to stir this one now because things are happening. It's boiling, it's going on, and it'll be at the expense of letting other projects simmer on the side, but they're still kind of going. And busy is a reality when it comes to a lot of musician existence. You can't have all of your eggs in one basket. There are unique people that will get a gig and it'll be that lifelong gig that just works for you. I was talking earlier this year with Ricky Phillips from Styx. That's the kind of gig that just keeps going and going, and they're still touring 200 days out of the year. And so it doesn't leave time for anything else. Yeah. So this is very cool. Speaking about, again, the music and your particular voice as a musician, tell us about your gear. I noticed on the answer that you play left-handed, which has you already in kind of a minority among bassists. But tell us. Yeah,
there's a few out there. My dad played guitar, banjo, mandolin. My grandpa played guitar. So when I was little, I would just sneak their stuff and just flip it over. Mm-hmm. It's not like I'm going to take the strings off, restring it, play it for a little bit, and then restring it the other way. And so I just learned how to play that way. The fat strings are at the bottom, and most of the stuff that a normal bass player does is on the fatter strings. So to me, it's more comfortable having the strings right there instead of reaching all the way across. It's more ergonomically feasible. Gotcha. But there's stuff like popping and slapping that I'll never be able to do. There are guys that do it that way. But there's weird stuff that I do that's probably difficult for somebody else to do. So it all works out. Got you.
So what kind of bass are you playing?
Right now, all Warwick. I've been with Warwick for probably about 6 years now.
Nice.
I played Rickenbackers for years and then Ibanez for a long time. And when my rep left at Ibanez, I just wanted to buy something that was top notch. I wanted to be re-inspired. And I talked to somebody at the Warwick booth at NAMM. Mm-hmm. And they were so welcoming. They didn't know who the hell I was or anything. Not that I'm anybody. But it turned out that the artist rep was a Caius fan. Oh. And the Monday after NAMM, I had a contract emailed, and I had my first bass within a couple of weeks. Very cool. And I've got two Katana basses. One's neck through 4-string, mm-hmm. and about a year ago they built an 8-string, and it's chrome. Man, it sounds incredible. It's the most beautiful bass I've ever owned. Nice. I'm hoping to use that during the set soon. I used it on one song on the Fireball Ministry record, Weaver's Dawn. And you don't really perceive it as an 8-string bass, but the tone is so thick. There's something about it. But I've used it on other stuff with harmonics, and it's gorgeous.
Nice. Now, with 8 strings, what we're talking about is they're set up in 4 sets of 2, right?
Correct. With octaves for each string.
And it just has such a richer tone to it.
Yes.
It is pretty sweet.
Hard to play. It's
Yeah.
like playing a keys grater. I can't even imagine the 12-string basses like Tom Peterson and Cheap Trick. Just
Yeah.
the tips of his fingers have to be just like rocks.
Yeah, you get to a point where there's no more feeling there.
Yeah.
It's gone. Now, beyond basses, you mentioned amplification. Now, you may be telling people that you're blowing up these amps, but what have you been blowing up?
Well, I still use my SVTs.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a 69 and a 70, and I'm getting tired of lugging those around. My shoulders aren't what they used to be, and then I have a custom-made Bison head. It's made by the guy that does hovercraft guitar amps.
Okay.
And that is what I used mostly on the Fireball Ministry record. It's got the creamy overdrive that I get with SVTs, but it's got a blend on the back between vintage and modern, and I just leave it in the middle. So when I play a chord on the SVT, it's so overdriven that it kind of mushes out.
Mm-hmm.
But on this Bison head, it has the clarity. You can hear every note, but it still has that creamy overdrive. So that's my favorite amp in the studio, but I'm kind of scared to take it out on the road. I don't want to lose it. It's the only one in the world.
Wow.
I've got a Mesa Boogie Strategy, and I love that thing. It sounds great. I blew a fuse on it, and I haven't been able to get a fuse yet.
Gotcha.
We used to have a Radio Shack in town, and I have to drive like a half an hour to get a fuse.
That's crazy. On
this last trip with Red Fang, I used this little tiny dark glass head, Microtubes 900, I think it is, and it's like that big.
Yeah.
Maybe 4 or 5 pounds. And I took that and my old SVT that I used on the Kaya stuff, just in case. And by the third show, I wasn't unpacking the SVT. I left it in the case. And by the fourth show, I left the SVT in the van. And that thing's been working pretty great.
Nice. Well, and it is a reality as we get older that we will have some changes weight-wise. And it's both basses and it's amps, and when we go to the NAMM show and I'll pick up one of those Thunderbirds and I'm going, oh my gosh, this thing is really heavy, mahogany or something. I'm like, let me get a hold of something light here. I'm getting a little too old for this. There you go.
Man, that Katana string, it's got a chrome finish, and when I pick up both basses, it's the same body, same wood, but with the chrome finish and the 8-string hardware, it's a ton. It might as well be solid metal. Wow. It's crazy.
Well, and then the amps, if you're fortunate enough that you have somebody else having to lug your gear for you, it makes it's no big deal. But if you're doing the heavy lifting, you're kind of going, I want to cut down on the weight and take advantage of the technology that has come along that's made it possible. How about pedals? Are you using anything in the way of pedals?
Dark Glass just sent me some stuff that I used on this last trip. Let me open up this case. I've never been a pedal guy. During the Kaya days, I just plugged straight into the SVT. And everybody would ask me, what kind of pedal do you use to get that sound? Nothing. It's just the way I have the EQ set. On the old SVTs, it's got the knobs are supposed to be at 12 o'clock and you can cut or boost. And I would just turn the bass and the mid and the treble all the way up as far as they would go. The rocker switch on the mids to 220, I think it is. And that's where the overdrive came from. I would only turn up the volume to about 3. But everybody thought I was using pedals. Nope, just going straight in.
Gotcha.
Okay, this pedal board, this is the first time I've ever had a real pedal board. The Dark Glass Super Symmetry compressor pedal. I thought I was going to hate that. I thought it was going to choke my signal. Halfway through our first set, I turned it off, and the stage volume isn't real crazy with us. I mean, it's pretty loud, but I noticed I wasn't getting the sustain. So I put it back on, and it's juicy again. So I'm loving this dark glass supersymmetry. And the Alpha Omega, it has 2 overdrive things that you can pan between. I've just got that straight up the middle, and there's a blend control, so you can go between your dry signal and the affected signal. And I've got that at about 2 o'clock, and it sounds killer with those 2 pedals alone. Going into that Microtubes 900, and then I've got some Pigtronic stuff. I got a distortion for extra fuzz and stuff, and I'm trying the Pigtronics bass fat drive. I haven't really got into that thing yet, but
gotcha.
Got a lot of stuff at my toe tips right there. So.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, and moving away from gear, although I know there's always a lot of people that will go, gee, how do you get the sound? We know that there's going to be some potential touring come up in the future. What other projects does Fireball Ministry, or do you have, as you mentioned, you guys do other stuff? Do you have any side projects or anything else that you are looking forward to?
Yeah, there's a thing called the Bassist Alliance. Jeff Huell from 6 Feet Under is one of the originators of this thing. And a lot of friends are coming together and doing collaborations on this record. I did a piece with Jeff, and I did another piece with this Russian guy, Leonid Maximov, who's another Warwick guy.
Gotcha.
And I'm pretty excited about it. It's weird stuff. I played a solo on Jeff's thing. And it's really weird. I recorded the original track with the bass touching a cabinet in the control room and just getting feedback and playing this melody. And then I reamped that through a talk box so I could get the and it came out great. I'm so excited about this thing coming out. Yeah. And then there's one piece with Leonid where I used the 8-string with harmonics, and we did a video for it. It's called Tapping Wires.
Nice.
And it's a collusion between American Scott and Russian. It came out awesome. And then I did another piece with Leonid. I don't know what it's called. And I'm not sure if it's going to be on that record, but it'll come out soon. There's another thing. I did a song about Standing Rock about a year ago with this English band, Sons of Alpha Centauri, and I don't think that album's done yet, but that'll be coming out. Just a lot of little side things, I've been pretty busy in here.
Nice. Well, and again, we'd mentioned the website for the band, fireballministry.com, but for these other things, is there a website or social media that's good for? I'm
not sure. I know there's a Facebook page for the Bassists Alliance.
Okay.
But yeah, offhand, I'm not sure. Oh, and I just played on the solo record of Rob Dukes from Exodus.
Oh, nice.
Daryl from Run DMC does a thing on one of the songs. So I'm on the same family tree as Run DMC now.
Wow. Here you go.
And that came out actually the day before the Fireball Ministry record, which was strange having 2 records come out the same week. But it's really heavy, brutal metal stuff. It came out pretty good. That's all I can think of right now, but I know there's more I'm forgetting about.
Well, no worries. This is a dynamic kind of thing. Things are always changing, and there's new things coming up. Yeah, it's blending together. Well, Scott, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to share with us your bass journey, the gear you're using. People, Fireball Ministry, check out Remember the Story. Again, I will include the link for the video so people can see the answer. And, I think it will whet your curiosity to make you want to hear more of Scott's playing, and and check out the other projects, the Bass Alliance, and so many other things that we've talked about.
The Sound City soundtrack.
There you go. This is so
That won a
much cool
Grammy.
stuff.
That actually won a Grammy for best film soundtrack.
Nice, nice. See, it's all the good stuff. Well, man, thank you so much, folks. You've seen it here. Scott Reeder coming to you directly via Skype on Bass Musician Magazine.